Just say it, man. Don't make me ask 20 questions.
What is the point?
Get to the point.
Just say it already.
Welcome to the Podcram. Today we'll grab some fitness tips and creative thinking from Dr. Andrew Huberman's interview with Olympic track and field coach Stuart McMillan as they discuss sprinting, skipping, and deadlift.
And my goal each day is not to say a lot. Like, I want the athlete to kind of find their way through things, and I will encourage them and guide them and sort of facilitate this discovery. But often we'll talk about different things, and if they're struggling with something, I'll give them a specific cue. And over the course of time, we build, this library of different things that the athlete thinks about, or the different cues. And then my objective coming into more of a competitive season is to try to align these cues with an emotion, what are called mood words. So, for example, when an athlete is accelerating, they're on the ground for a little bit longer than when they're upright because they need to actually propel themselves forward. They need horizontal force. They need the ground to push themselves forward. So they push and they push, or they drive. So cues could be drive. It could be push. It could be power. It could be pull your thighs forward. It could be all of these different things that are around power. But for me, the mood word that really expresses this better than anything is pressure. I want you to feel like you're applying as much pressure through the first half of this race as you possibly can.
You deliberately start at your lower spine and unpeel yourself from that folded over position, never letting the head lead. So basically like a chain coming up from the spine, and then the head moves last. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's moving the whole time, but you're looking straight forward last, as opposed to what you're saying where you lift the head first. That's been tremendously helpful to me in movements in the gym, which I think have helped me a lot, like glute ham raises, where you're essentially in that position and you come all the way up and then you go into a hamstring curl, or a deadlift, or any kind of movement where I'm going from torso bent forward to up. I remembered it. Move the torso first and the head last. And I'll just say, in my own experience, the strength increases that come from doing it that way, as opposed to moving the head first and trying to then pull the weight up, it's remarkable. We are all so much stronger than we think if we engage the motor neurons in the proper sequence. Yep. So I think that's what you're referring to here.
100%.
Okay.
Do you, here's a question for you. When you were first taught how to squat, were you told to look at the ceiling? Or up on the wall?
Yeah, I was told the weight will go where my eyes go. Right. But now I
Where did that come from?
I
still don't understand where that came from.
I don't know. I mean, some of the most useful things that have been told to me over the years that made a tremendous difference would be like this. One of the most useful things for the squat and for the deadlift has been, because it's very difficult to think about many things at once, especially when you're pulling or trying to squat heavy loads, is to move my chest and my hips at the same time together, so that you don't end up doing the dreaded good morning back raise followed by standing up.
Right.
So moving them in unison. So thinking about my chest and my hips moving at the same time, that's been tremendously helpful and tends to put the head in the right position. And the other one is, when deadlifting, to not think about pulling the weight off the floor, but rather pushing my feet into the ground while driving back. And these little things end up making a huge difference, not just in terms of the amount of weight that you can pull or squat, but the safety of the movement. It's just so much more stable to drive the feet into the ground. And you think, why was I trying to pull a weight off the ground? All I had to do was like push my feet hard into the ground and hold onto this bar, and boom, you're up.
That easy.
It's wild how we pick up bad habits. It's also wild how quickly those bad habits can be resolved.
Moving our body with intensity is probably something we should be able to do for as long as we possibly can. But we can't. Because typically, we've still got pretty good engines into our 30s and 40s and 50s, but we don't have the bodies to be able to handle the stresses and the forces that this engine could put into the body. So our tissue and our joints just is not able to handle all of these forces. And we don't have the tissue capacity to be able to handle that anymore, or the joint capacity. So what do we do instead? And I typically recommend two activities. One is running up hills. There's a lot less stress on the tissue and the joint system by sprinting up a hill than there is on sprinting on a straightaway. But second, I think more important, is actually skipping.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this conversation or this portion of the conversation could be titled, let's normalize skipping for adults.
There is not a sprint group on the planet that don't skip. Every single sprinter skips, every single one of them, because of the importance of this specific gait pattern. It's really important.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by activities, both physical and mental, that facilitate the transition into a more difficult activity, physical or mental. I started to think about this when I started working on my book in earnest. It's very hard to just jump into writing. But I noticed that if I did some drawing, listened to a lecture while I was drawing, and I do anatomical drawings, very easy to transition into writing. I enjoy drawing. I'm not trying to accomplish much with it, but it's a very natural activity for me, and just very easy to drop into a deep groove for writing for hours.
Really?
And then I started talking to a musician friend of mine he's a songwriter, very accomplished songwriter, and he does the same. And then I saw a post from Joni Mitchell that she would paint before she would sing. And I think these transition activities that are natural for us that don't feel as constricted by distance over time.
Thanks for listening to this installment of The Podgram. I hope it contains something useful for you. If you enjoy these selections and are curious about the curator's own thoughts, you can check out my other podcast, Psychic Lube, where I share concise concepts meant to grease the intellectual gears and help get your creative juices flowing. Each episode is an ongoing collaborative project that welcomes listeners to expand or rebut its points by email or comment, the most interesting of which get incorporated through periodic re-recordings. As always, if you're intrigued by today's content, I encourage you to go listen to the full podcast in its original form directly from its creators so that their sponsors keep paying them to make stuff for us and nobody feels compelled to sue me for copyright infringement. Now, get off your phone and go do smart stuff. Have a productive day.